You are listening to Creating Active Lives with me, Sarah Blytho, and my regular weekly guests, and we are all here to share the research, the science, and the strategies, as well as some of the fun, to help you to create a more active life. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Creating Active Lives with me, Sarah Blytho, and my guest this week, Tanya Gordon. Tanya helps people build businesses that work through various stages of their lives and the lives of their families as well, which is actually really interesting. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, because I think we've gone past the stage of where you get a job for life. And now we often have various roles and various jobs that fit in with different phases of our lives. But we will talk about that. And her business is called Many Hats of Business, which, you know, anyone who's in business will know that they often have many hats, or in my case, tiaras. But what we're really going to start talking about is Tanya's back. Tanya used to have terrible back pain growing up, and it only really started to get better or started to resolve when she started weightlifting, when she met her second husband. But she's really passionate about leading healthy lives through activity, through going to the gym, and the fact that, do you know what, sometimes a good bout of gardening is just as good as going to the gym. So it's not all about, right, let's do this, but it's finding what works for you in all areas of life, but particularly activity, isn't it? So Tanya, introduce yourself and we'll talk about your back.
Hi, Sarah. Yeah, it's wonderful to be here. And exactly what you said. For me, it's about making your business work for your life. And you've got to fit that in of looking after yourself, because essentially we live longer now. So if we're not looking after ourselves, by the time we've done all this work and we've built this business and we've earned all this money, what are we going to have left at the end of it? Because we're not going to be fit and able enough to enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things, isn't it? Is so many people, they end up with a healthy bank balance, but an unhealthy health, unhealthy body. And, you know, it's gone are the days where you retire and slow down. Now it's right, I'm going to retire and do all the things that I haven't done yet. So this is where, you know, good health and particularly a healthy back is actually really, really important, because, as you know, having a bad back can stop you doing a lot of things, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was young. I remember, I feel like my back pain started when I was in primary school, and obviously those horrible wooden chairs didn't help. And I went to the osteopath when I was young and discovered that I'd got a scoliosis, and it wasn't anything massive. That's a curvature of the spine for anyone that doesn't know. It wasn't anything huge, but it just gave me such pain. And the sitting for hours in school didn't help. And I've horse ridden from a young age, but luckily, touch wood, never had any disastrous falls or anything. But it got far worse when I was working in pubs. So I was about 17, 18. So it's still quite young to be suffering with a lot of back pain. And I've always been a bit of a bull in a china shop. So I was always just like, you know, you get it done, whatever needs doing. And I used to manage the cellar. And because of all of the bending down they're not very high, the cellars. So obviously a lot of what you're doing, you're bending down anyway, not in the best position, and you're lugging heavy things. And I had a disastrous time then. And like, of course, you're standing still, which is horrendous, worse than walking. And of course, at that age, I used to wear high heels sometimes as well, or go out in high heels. And basically, it resulted in me having to have. I got a sports massage guy, and he used to freeze polystyrene cups full of water and give me massages with those, which is a very unpleasant experience. So, because as they melt, obviously you're being massaged with a block of ice, and as it melts, to try and help with the inflammation, as it melts, you can feel cold water trickling, and it's really not very pleasant.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And yet everybody loves these cold baths, but it's very different, isn't it, than a massage? Massage is.
I haven't rushed into the cold bath thing, having having tested that.
I'm not a fan of the cold myself, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because you say starting in primary school, and I think, you know, chances are there's a lot of people who could probably trace a bad back. Children are not designed to sit still.
They thought I was making it up. You know, they really did think I was making up. Oh, you're too young to have back pain. And I can remember even in secondary doing some PE stuff, and people, oh, you're too young to have back pain. Oh yeah, tell that
Yeah,
to my back.
it's interesting because we're not designed to sit still, and particularly as children, we're not. And if you have got that curvature, that scoliosis, being sat in the same position all day is probably going to exacerbate it because your body's trying to sort of right itself, which is going to add to any discomfort and things like that.
And I think as children, we often don't have, certainly as we grow up, we don't have the best posture. Because I've got kids now, they're teenagers, and they'll sit in the worst positions looking at their screens and playing on their Xbox and stuff. And we're forever saying, oh, sit up straight. And I can remember the same being said to me, but we haven't kind of got the strength to do that.
No, no, the problem with the body and particularly, the muscles is when they are used to being in a certain position, to try and come out of that position requires a lot of effort. And like any like lifting, like resistance training and things like that, that effort results in sore muscles. So even though the muscles are you're holding yourself in the correct posture. For anyone who can't say, I'm actually sitting up nice and straight now, but you're holding yourself in the correct posture. But because your body's got used to bad posture, being in correct posture is effectively endurance training for the muscles, and they start to hurt after a while. So you think, oh, that's not good. It's bad for me. It's not. It's just that your body's not used to it. And it's like anything, going from bad posture to good posture takes time, but it also, I think, and we're going to come on to this, but it takes somebody showing you the right way to do it, the right muscles to activate, and the right position to be in, because it's not just like going from a slump to standing tall like a soldier. There's much more to it than that. So,
Oh, definitely. And it's funny because, you would assume, wouldn't you, that we'd all stand the right way because, like, why would we not? But we don't, and we haven't been taught to do it properly. And we do. It's like anything, you have to kind of practice it, don't you, to get that ability.
can I just say, going back many years, many years at school, we actually had deportment lessons.
Oh, so
We
you
did
did get
walk with a
taught
book on
it.
our head and things like that. And do you know what? It really does focus you, particularly if it's a heavy book, because if it lands on your feet, it hurts. But it's things like that just aren't done anymore. But actually, it was quite useful because it was when you were sitting, you had your book on your head. If you were standing, you were walking, you were moving, and it did make you really think. Because if you didn't have the correct posture, the book fell off. So it's something that we kind of don't do anymore. But maybe we should. Anyway, so let's find out then how you started to you get into weightlifting and how that helped your back.
Yeah, so obviously I'd got this fear, probably, really, about doing anything too heavy or anything over the years. And then I had two children with my first husband, and obviously a lot of time had passed from when I'd had this major issue with working in the cellar. I'd gone into an office job and sitting around a lot, so my back never got better. I discovered I'd got hypermobility when I went to see a chiropractor. Right at the end of a treatment, she rolled my shoulder round and it kind of jumped out a bit and clunked, and she was sounded surprised. And I said, "Oh, isn't that how shoulders work?" And she said, "No." I said, "Oh, okay." I thought I was normal, but apparently not. So that helped me to discover, obviously, this problem I'd had. And with obviously having the children, and everything gets laxer with your ligaments and things, then, you know, I just thought back pain was something that I was going to have for the rest of my life because I'd had it most of my life. So, what was going to change? And yeah, as I was 31, I met my husband, and he is big into weightlifting. He's older than me, he's 15 years older than me. So he's been weightlifting since he was in his early 20s, probably before. So he's been weightlifting for 30 years. So he's got a lot of experience, and he very much does it properly. But, that sort of longevity is really, massive. The lot of experience. So he started taking me to the gym, and I was, quite anxious the first time I squatted with a bar on my back. The idea of, you're compressing your spine, the thought is there. And I haven't lifted anything crazy heavy or anything, but my PB was just over 60k, which, for anyone that doesn't know, is the bar with the two big plate on each side, which, for a woman at the time, it was basically what I weighed. So I was squatting with myself on my back. Slightly more than me. Yeah, so basically it was that. And I was really anxious about my back. But when I started this weight training, and obviously it wasn't just about squatting, I did a lot of different exercises. I discovered my backache completely went. I never had the issues. Yes, you got the muscular, as you said, like, oh, I've got my DOMS of the delayed onset muscle soreness the next day and the day after, but nothing with my actual back pain. It was only, and when you start to train as well, you start to really differentiate different body parts. So you start to notice them. So I could say, oh, that's muscular pain. Whereas in the past, it's just general, my back hurts. You don't differentiate in the same way.
And actually, that's really, really important. Such an important point, and it's something I always make a point of telling people who are new to activity is, if you are using muscles in a completely different way for the first time, you will get some soreness, but it should be kind of, if you like, comfortable soreness.
That
You can
feeling of
still,
you've done something.
yeah, but you can still go about your everyday stuff. If you can't move or it's really painful, then there's either something going on or you've overdone it. But you should, when you've used your muscles for the first time properly, you should experience kind of little signs in your body that, yeah, I've worked, I can feel that. But it's not pain. Pain is a different thing, and it's really important that people, like you say, learn to differentiate between the two, because a lot of people will exercise, they'll wake up the next day, or they'll get through the next day and they'll get to the evening because delayed onset muscle soreness usually 24 hours or so, but they'll go, oh, this hurts, it's back pain, I better not do that again. Whereas actually it's not, it's the muscles going, oh, we've worked for the first time in a long time. We're just letting you know we're there. And I think that's such an important point is learning to differentiate between muscle soreness, which means, yes, I've worked my muscles in the right way and it's manageable, or actual pain, because a lot of people will mistake normal muscle soreness for pain and stop when actually they need to keep going, don't they?
Oh, definitely. And interestingly, I've managed to skip leg day. They always say in the weightlifting world, never skip leg day. Well, I've managed to skip leg day successfully now for, like, I don't know, probably a couple of months. And it was a really bad idea. But on Sunday, I've done leg day again and obviously stripped all the weight back down. And that's what you have to do. And you can't just be permanently building up. You have to, if you're losing the consistency. And with women, one of the things I've really noticed as well is where I'm at in my cycle massively makes a difference on how strong I am. And I think people, it's one of those things. It's like it's a journey of learning about what you're doing and about yourself. And actually, instead of just following a program that somebody's made for you, or you've got off the internet and you're just copying things, it's all about feeling for yourself as well. Um, and I think you sometimes you do go, okay, well, I'll just do a couple of less reps or slightly lighter, and sometimes you are feeling stronger and you can go more, but you've got to do that listening to your body. But I was really lucky with my husband's knowledge, but I have used PTs along the way. And I've got friends interestingly, I've got friends that have trained as PTs after I started weightlifting, and I helped them because of the amount of knowledge I'd picked up from my husband in this time. And these were women that hadn't done weightlifting, then training as PTs, but I'd got that knowledge to be able to help them. But the form is the most important thing. And listen to your body and have the right form. And that's why, I didn't get the backache. But some of the things you see people doing in gyms and how they're doing it is really dangerous. And it is totally safe to do it if you do it properly. And for women particularly, it's so
Yeah.
important because it helps with preventing osteoporosis later on.
Absolutely, and that's something as women we do need to worry about. Two things I want to just come back to that you've said is about how the amount you can lift, the way you lift changes with your cycle. In actual fact, I was talking to Roxy King Clark a few months back on the podcast. It's still up there. She was talking about how our menstrual cycles will influence our activity, and that there are some times where actually, yeah, lifting's a really good thing and you do really well, and other times where actually cardiovascular might be better, or stretching and meditation might be better. And it's like you say, you listen to your body, you get to know your body, and some days when you go into the gym and you think, God, what's wrong? I can't lift as much as I used to. Actually, it's purely because you're in a different phase of your cycle as a woman. And you need to work with that, not try and fight against it, which is vital, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think also it can depend on your stress levels. It can depend how much sleep you've had. And of course, having young kids, that varies. What you've eaten. And I think that's the important thing is if you know that, say, for example, you were going to do 3 sets of 12 reps. It's quite a normal sort of number. Like the first set, you're picking a weight that you might have used before and you're happy with, and you do the 12 sets. If that feels too easy, then you're going to go slightly heavier next time. If it doesn't feel, if you're struggling to get to 12, perhaps drop it down one, but certainly not going up in the weight. And it's just about playing with it. And it doesn't matter if you do a couple of reps into your 12 and think, this is too much or not enough. Okay, I'll change it. It's about that understanding with your body. And like
Yeah.
you say, especially as women, that changes all the time.
Yeah, it does. The other thing I want to pick up on, and again, this is such an important point, is learning the correct form, the correct technique right from the word go. And I'll be honest, with a lot of people, that means minimal weight initially. And you're obviously a gym goer as well. There are times where I walk through the gym and I kind of think I wish I had blinkers because I'm seeing such poor technique. And I've said to people before, look, drop the weight, improve your technique. And they go, oh, I'm not dropping my weight. And it's like, but if you drop the weight, you'll improve your technique and you will get better results.
Yeah, my husband, he goes to a gym that's it's funny. I'm a member at Champneys, and he goes to a gym that's like falling apart, and he loves it. Like the difference is really funny with where we go to. But if I take him to Champneys, he finds it hilarious because like sometimes I'll be looking in the mirrors thinking he's gonna want to say something to them, and then but he does the same at his gym, and people will always say to him like, how'd you get shoulders like you? Well, he's been consistent for 30 years anyway, so consistency is a massive difference and doing it in the right way. And I think people, especially now, it's dangerous what is on Instagram and other social media channels because there's people saying they're PTs or coaches or fitness coach, whatever they call themselves. They're not qualified and they're doing exercises that aren't safe. And often you can tell because you skip to the comments because there'll be a lot of people telling you that like don't do this if it is something not to do. And I think I saw it once in a Woman's Health magazine where they were talking about a full upper body workout, and they were talking about this full shoulder workout, and they did a full diagram of the shoulder and all the three heads, and then the exercises they were doing completely missed the rear.
Yeah. And
So I was
actually,
like,
in most
and this
people,
is like a publication that
yeah.
supposedly knows what they're
And
doing.
most people, for anyone who doesn't know, the shoulder muscle, the deltoid kind of comes in three. You've got anterior, medial, which is the one on the top, and then the rear one at the back. And actually, it's the rear one that most women need because it'll improve their
Yes, because
posture.
we're always arching forward on our
Yeah,
computers and
but
such like.
but it, like I say, it's so important to get the right advice and the right technique, because it will make the difference. You will get the best results by doing it that way, and it isn't. Sometimes it's less about the weight and more about the technique. Well, always it's less about the weight and more about the technique, but certainly in the early stages. And if you want to change something or tweak something, sometimes dropping the weight and going back to refining your technique, actually suddenly you'll start to get the results that you'd plateaued on because you've actually just tweaked your technique slightly, which means that you can lift those heavy weights, can't you? And I agree. I mean, I think that the term is fitness influencers, and yeah, there's a lot of kind of, I suppose it's almost like those, like you say Chinese whispers, where you start with saying something and then by the time it gets down, it's diluted or it's changed completely. And I think there's quite a lot of that. Is people just they're not informed or experienced or qualified, so they're not sure whether the advice they're giving is correct or not. And like I say, it's always best to go to somebody who is qualified, who's experienced, and who listens to you and what you want to achieve is another thing, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And I think also like one of the things to note for people is if they want to start doing a bit and having a play and they might have had a PT but then they want to play and develop more themselves. One of the things to do to avoid adding weight is to slow it down, because the time under tension massively increases, and then you're getting the exact a far greater effect from the same weight. So if people are kind of not feeling about putting more weight onto what they're lifting, if they slow it down, then they get a better effect as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, this is where that advice is so important because, you can injure yourself with weights, either because the weight's too heavy or but more importantly, because your technique's not right. And you also need to be, it isn't just, oh, I'm going to work my biceps, I'm going to have nice big biceps. It isn't just what's happening with the biceps, it's what's happening with your back, your core, your legs, your glutes, your shoulders, because all of those, although they're not specifically working, they're assisting in which.
One of the things I really struggle with, and I think it had a lot to do with my back pain as well, is my core strength. So even, and you can test this when you're standing. So if you try and stand up properly with good posture, see how long it is before it really quite aches and you don't want your back and you want to give up. And it's not because of your back, it's because your core's not strong enough to hold you in that posture. So it's amazing how core strength plays a difference in all of our life, and it isn't about doing sit-ups, is it,
No,
at the
it's
end of the day?
absolutely not about doing sit-ups. It's again, I don't want to get into too many specifics, but when we talk about the core, most people will immediately think the six pack. And actually that's kind of, the six pack's kind of immaterial really. If you can get yourself out of bed in the morning, those particular muscles are probably working well enough. But it's the ones that surround and support the spine and help the spine with stability, with strength, with movement. And then you've got layers that kind of support the inner layers, and then you've got the outer layers, which are the ones that are kind of, if you like, the cosmetic ones that are much more to do with movement. And you've got to strengthen that inner core. And like you were saying about things like squatting and deadlifting and lifting with a bar, in actual fact, part of the technique for that is knowing how to properly engage through the core, which means that your core is being worked effectively and appropriately with each movement. And I think again that's something that a lot of people, they'll work on the actual muscles, thinking, all right, I'll work this muscle, but they don't think, actually I need to work everything that is supporting me in this movement.
Yeah, and I think it's that thing as well that, like, people, they think, okay, I might go into resistance training, but some of these big movements, such as the deadlift and the squat, people think, oh, well, that's for the big boys, I won't be doing those. But those big compound movements that work every bit of your body are really, really important to do, but it's very important that you get the right form. Because, if you did them and nothing else, you'd be working your whole body.
That's it. And it's, we're talking here about specific exercises in the gym, but you use the movements that we've mentioned just now, squat and deadlift. We use those movements every single day in everyday life. If we
We
know the right
should.
technique for those movements in the gym,
Yeah.
we will apply that technique to when we're picking up children, when we're picking up grandchildren, when we're lifting shopping, when we're squatting to go on the loo, or we're squatting down to clean under our circuit boards.
Well, you think nowadays in the workplace there's manual handling training, and that's because nobody lifts properly. In the old days, everybody knew to bend your knees to lift. People don't do that now because it's too hard. So we just bend down and pick stuff up off the floor and hurt our backs. You know, in be, before we knew all of this, and we've just sort of gone away from it, haven't we, over the years?
It's something I talk about a lot on courses, actually, the specialist courses that I do particularly, is as a species, if you like, the Western world, we have unbelievably successfully factored activity out of our everyday lives. We now have to find time to be active. We have to go to the gym or do things. Whereas actually, if you go back 50, 60, whatever, 100 years, you couldn't not be active. In actual fact, putting your feet up was a rare treat because the rest of the time you were walking to the shops, you were shopping, you were cooking, you were doing the washing with a washboard. We factored everyday activity out of our lives. We now have to find ways of putting it back in. Whereas before, because our lives were so active, we didn't need the gym. We didn't need a lot of these because we learnt the techniques from our our parents and grandparents, and we were just active people. And this is one of the big things for me is, yeah, if you want to go to the gym, go to the gym. If you want to go to a class, go to the class. But find what you like doing. But make
And
sure
that's
that,
so important, isn't it?
yeah,
Find what you like and
yeah,
what works for your life, because
that's it.
it doesn't matter what you're doing. I mean, I've done weightlifting, and I'm telling you, weeding is highly effective on your hands and knees. Like, I every time I work in my garden, every single time I come away and go, I don't know how old people do it. You know, because old people have more time for gardening, and that's what they seem a lot of them do. And you're just like, I'm knackered. And they do
Yeah,
it
but
all the time.
chances are, though, that they spend most of their adult lives being active in everyday life. And this is the thing, like I say, yeah, go to the gym, whatever, but make sure that your life generally is active. Do some stretches, do some mobility, do some walking, do some lifting, just for fun. Because the more active you are, the more benefit you'll get generally, and it's just so important, particularly lifting. And you mentioned osteoporosis earlier on. We know that this is a disease, a condition that is increasingly common, and a lot of it is down to the fact that as women, particularly, we've stopped lifting things. We've stopped
Oh,
lifting things in
definitely.
everyday life.
Yeah, I mean, when I was stronger, I've got a nearly 3-year old now, so I've had a few years where I haven't done as much because time and tiredness doesn't allow as much. But I'm starting to have a big push again now of putting myself first, because, well, not even putting myself first, but perhaps not last. Because as a mum, I've always been that I put myself at the bottom of the pile. I've got friends that do the same. One of my friends, actually, she's just started playing rugby because she used to do it in university, and we're now nearing 40. And she said, like, she's just started playing rugby again because the local team's playing, and she's having a great time. And she said for her, because she's part of a team and she's committed, she doesn't want to let people down, she goes. If she was going to go to the gym, she wouldn't go because she wouldn't put herself first, which is exactly what I do. I don't prioritize myself, and I'm just having a push on it now because I know I'm approaching that perimenopause time where it's going to be really important that I look after myself.
And this is the thing, isn't it? It's I'm not saying that every woman should go out there and play rugby or whatever, but I mean, actually, fact, rugby is really good because the contact, you know, the contact is bone loading. You're getting stress through the bones, which is really good for your bones. And also there is an element of training. There'll be training once or twice a week and things like that, which is really good. But find something. There's so many different sports out there that will give you that activity, that will give you that boost. And for most of them, because of you're using techniques that kind of are right for your body, that your body likes, it will start to improve back health as well, because your back is moving in a way that it needs to in order to stay healthy. And I think that's another thing, isn't it, with backs, is people think, I've got back pain, I must rest. Whereas actually the advice is the opposite. It's you actually need to move more, but move appropriately and safely, but move, because your back is designed to move. Um, in the way that like elbows and knees, we expect to bend and flex them all the time. The back is a series of joints. There's lots of joints in the back, and yet for some reason we don't think, oh, I need to keep these joints moving.
No, exactly. And like, if it seizes up, you're really struggling at the end of the day, aren't you? And there's always yoga. Now, interestingly, I said I've always been a bit of a bull in a china shop, so you wouldn't naturally put me and yoga together. Anyone that knows me well wouldn't put me and yoga together. But I've done it a few times and realised I was quite good at it because obviously I've got hypermobility, so flexibility wasn't a problem for me. If anything, it's about not going too far. But anything that involves twisting all the way kind of round in a seated position, I'm like part owl, and I'm like keep going round, and everyone's like, "Wow, you're doing well." Um, but yoga for me's been really good because it, with running the businesses and having the children, you can get quite stressed at the end of the day. And I'm all about trying to manage everything to make sure your business works for your life. But sometimes you have deadlines, and there's just stuff that all the best laid plans, can go out the window to a point. And I've started doing yoga, which I can do in my lounge, and I absolutely love it. And I think it's sometimes that thing that if you find something that you're quite naturally good at, there's nothing like being naturally good at something to give you a boost of enthusiasm for something. And I think that's that thing of testing a load of different things. I've got friends that have started playing netball now. And some of them, when they started that, were like, we're not as fit as we were when we were 14, surprisingly. But they've persisted because they've enjoyed it and they've got that team thing. And it's about especially if you can do it in a social way with friends and
Yeah.
things, it's really nice.
I know, and I know for men that walking football's taking off hugely because you've got the fun of the football, but without the running and the impact. But you've also got the social element, and like you said before, quite often you think, well, I've got to go because I'm letting people down if I don't. And in a way, you're putting yourself first by thinking of other people first, but you're still putting yourself first and getting that activity. So
Which makes it much
you
easier.
mentioned, so you mentioned business and things like that now. So tell us a little bit more about your business, Many Hats of Business, because, again, it's something that you've developed. And I was going to say, sitting at a desk all day isn't the best for our backs, but you've obviously found a way of managing your back health and a very successful business.
Yeah, for me, I had a manufacturing business. I've still got it. I've had it for 15 years now. And essentially, in doing that, and because I was previously a finance manager, I realised that a lot of people that I was speaking to hadn't got the business skills that they needed to be able to run successful businesses. So essentially, the Many Hats of Business came about the fact that we have got a hell of a lot of hats to wear, and we need to. I believe we should learn enough about all of the different hats so that we know then what we want to delegate, but we can do it effectively because we have an understanding. So, for example, one of the things I help people with is getting their websites ranking on Google, because it's always been a massive part of our strategy of bringing in work. Half of our new business comes from Google searches and the other half is referral. So, when I've had the kids and things, I haven't had to go and get work in because they automatically find us, which has been great. But people go and get a website built when they first get a business, and it's always something they tend to do early in their journey. And then they've got this website and they expect to be found and they're going to get all of these orders, and then nothing happens. And it's demoralising because they've often spent at least £1,500 on the website that they haven't necessarily got to be throwing around at that time. And it's just, so it all sort of stemmed from that as well, really, of that thing of people just having that disappointment and me knowing I could help people.
Which is, and again, it's something that I think quite often, it's supporting people, isn't it? It's supporting other people, whether it's through fitness, whether it's through lifting techniques at the back, or whether it's through business. It's kind of seeing where people need that support, but also making sure that people know where they can find you to get that support. And that's, again, like you're saying about websites, is you can have the shiniest website in the world, but if nobody knows it's there, then it's not doing its job. And it's really, really helpful that people can come to you and say, look, what can I do to improve referrals coming into my business? What can I do to increase my leads?
Yeah, definitely. I'm doing a business health check for people at the minute because it's just a quick, easy way it takes them about half an hour to fill in a form, and they can get some really useful advice quickly that's totally bespoke on what they've put. And I think that's going to be really useful for people as a low cost. At the minute, it's free, but by the time this comes out, it's just starting to be charged for. But as something where they can just take action quickly and start to move in the right way.
Do you know what? It's just popped into my head. Every year, every single year, whether we need to or think we need to or whatever or not, we take our cars along to have an MOT. And the garage will check what's working, what's not working, what's looking a bit iffy, what you can improve, and things like that, won't they? Just to make sure that you're completely roadworthy. We don't do it for our health. We don't do it for our businesses necessarily. And maybe that's something we should say, actually, I need to be treating my health and my business the same way I treat my car, and get it checked out properly every year, and fix the bits that aren't working and boost the bits that are.
I think actually, interestingly you say that, because I think if we looked at how we treat and what we do for our material possessions and put that onto ourselves and our businesses, I think we'd be very different. My husband's a financial advisor, so I obviously have a large understanding of insurance for your income and things like that. And it's unbelievable when people all pay, 15 quid a month to insure their phone, but they won't insure themselves and their income. And you just like, but it is just that thing, isn't it? Of people, we get these preconceived ideas, we have different information thrown at us from so many sources, but we don't sit back and reflect and take a wider look at things as often as we should, really.
No, and that
It
includes,
isn't
as I say,
normalised.
it includes our health and our health, wealth, happiness, and our backs as well. So coming back to backs, and thank you for that. And I will make sure that all the links for your business are in the podcast when it goes out. But coming back to back, what advice would you give to somebody who says, well, yeah, I've always had a bit of a bad back. It's just kind of part of me now. Because I think people get to that stage, don't they? A lot of people get to the point where it's just, I just got a bad back.
Yeah, and I think I've not had treatment now for years, apart from the odd aromatherapy massage, which you can't really count, but which is totally lovely. Highly recommend it. But I think go and see someone. I saw a lot of people along the way, but I think exercise, and I think you've got to. Perhaps this is going to seem harsh, but we're very good at making excuses. And I think we can easily say that we can't do anything, but nobody can do nothing. Walk up the stairs a couple of extra times, go for a walk. But stretching is really important. And one of the great things, for example, about yoga is, there's loads on YouTube that you can find easy ones. And I think, you can do it in your house, so no one's going to see you if you really want. And I think you've just got to start somewhere, and every single one of those moves, if you can't do one of them, no one cares if you can't do a downward dog. Just bend forward a bit. If you can't touch the floor, it doesn't matter. If you bend down till you touch your knees, it all makes a difference.
It's that start, isn't it? You've got to start somewhere and build slowly and gradually. But honestly and truthfully, as somebody who has experienced bouts of back pain in my life, the difference when you don't have back pain is it's indescribable. And if you're living with back pain at the moment, honestly and truthfully, get out there, get moving, because not having back pain is very freeing, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I can't imagine having it now. You like, and I had it for so long that I genuinely never believed I would be without it, and it was exercise.
Yeah. So everybody, get out there, get creating an
moving.
active life. And if you want to create an active business, get in touch with Tanya. Tanya, thank you so much for coming on to chat to us. It's been really, really good. We've covered quite a lot of angles of fitness as well as business, but a lot of stuff coming in there with fitness. But thank you so much. It's been really, really good to talk to you.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. You've been listening to me, Sarah Bolitho, and my guest, Tanya Gordon, this week on Creating Active Lives. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you again very soon. Thank you for listening to Creating Active Lives with me, Sarah Bolitho, and my guests. Join me each week for more on how to create and sustain everyday activity, and follow me online at Fitness Career Mentor or Fabulous if you're interested in career development and more on creating active lifestyles.